Whenever you're ready.
The Great Escape of El Chapo was one of the biggest stories of 2015 that sparked everyone's interest in the notorious Mexican drug cartels. I'm Quin Hoover, and today I will be informing you about the ins and outs of the Mexican drug cartels. The drug cartels have brought billions of dollars worth of drugs across the North American border. Due to this, many Americans have suffered from the side effects of used drugs and even died. This topic is relevant to us in this era because without a solution to halt the doings of the drug cartels, harmful drugs will continue to flow into our country and harm our citizens. During this speech, I will paint a visual of how the Mexican drug cartels operate, how they affect the communities and country, and the Mexican government. First, I'll give you some background on a few of the main leaders of the cartel and how a cartel is run. According to a 2010 article named Inside Mexico's Drug War, the drug gangs grew more independent and began fighting for more control and larger territories. These are a few of the leaders that led these territories. Some legendary and dominant drug cartel leaders include Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, Joaquin Guzman, aka El Chapo, and Pablo Escobar Gaviria. Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, otherwise known as the Godfather, controlled the Guadalajara cartel. The cartel transported much of their product across the North American soil. Joaquin Guzman, famously known as El Chapo, started in the drug cartel business as the lieutenant of Felix Gallardo and worked his way up to becoming one of the most known drug lords in America, well, in Mexico. Chapo is at the top of the biggest cartel in Mexico, the Sinaloa cartel. Pablo Escobar Gaviria was the notorious leader of the Medellin cartel. According to the 2016 article by Tom Wainwright, the drug cartels have expanded and dominated areas by luring in criminals by bribing them with large amounts of cash to use their brands while committing crimes for them. The drug cartels went to the extent of giving them merchandise with their logos on them and even training some of them how to use weapons. In return, the criminals would cut the cartel a share of all the money they received from committing crimes. The strategy of the cartels was to buy up the necessary people to protect their business and to protect their money. According to the same 2016 article by Tom Wainwright, he explains how during his time in Mexico and South America, he has monitored how the drug cartels operate and how they run similar to businesses like Walmart. The article explains how the cartels have exclusive relationships with their suppliers, which are the farmers that grow the coca plants. But their relationship allows the cartels to keep the price of coke stable. The cartels have established a monopoly on buying in the area by positioning themselves as being the only buyers in the area for the coca plants. Bonner quotes in his 2012 article that to avoid a disruption of their operations, the cartels bought increasingly sophisticated weapons and bribed Mexican government officials at all levels. Now that you've heard the history behind the cartels, I will explain how the cartels affected the communities and the country as a whole. A 2012 article by Bonner stated that bloodshed has hurt Mexico's image, damaged its tourism industry, and exhausted an increasingly weary Mexican public. Ted Carpenter's 2011 article explains how many allegations have spread that Mexico could possibly become a failed state because the excessive power the drug cartels held over the government officials and law enforcement. The 2015 article named Mexico's Cycle of Crime and Corruption states that corruption had cost Mexico 9% of its gross domestic product in 2014, and violence had cost it 22%. The evolution of the city Aguascalientes expresses how the drug cartel impacted communities. Aguascalientes had been a quiet place that had little to no violence. Fast forward 2 short years later, Aguascalientes had become a terrifying place to live. The city that had become riddled with crime and much more. They soon learned that law enforcement wouldn't protect them from the bloodshed that was taking place so close to home. Gunmen shot up a high school party, killing 15 people and injuring at least a dozen others. According to a 2010 article by Kellner and Pepitone, angry crowds split out onto the streets and lashed out at the president. Now that you've seen how they affected the people around them, let me explain to you what the law enforcement and government officials did to take action. They did nothing, because most of the government officials and law enforcement have been bribed already by the cartels to protect them and turn a blind eye to the extent of drugs that they were moving across not only the border but across the world. Any operations President Calderon ordered were quickly compromised because law enforcement officials had been paid off. Calderon soon learned that Mexico's weak and corrupt law enforcement institutions were not up for the task. Calderon discovered that nearly all of the law enforcement was riddled with corruption. The military is where he turned to, considering that they had never been involved in any investigating for the cartels. To win the war against the cartels, Calderon needed trustworthy cops. He curated a plan to create a new professional federal police force. He began by rebuilding the state forces and giving the responsibilities of the municipal police to the federal police force. Calderon abolished the AFI agency in May 2009 and created an entirely new force. He soon realized that he would need to make changes to the judicial system as well. In cases involving persons arrested for drug trafficking, Mexican prosecutors obtained less than 5% of convictions. Bonner quotes, "To fix this abysmal record, Calderon has proposed moving to a more transparent criminal justice system with trials taking place in public to hold judges and prosecutors accountable." Mexican prisons had lots of trouble keeping the incarcerated in jail due to weak enforcement. Calderon addressed this issue by building a maximum security prison that was similar to the design of the ones in the US. Calderon's approach to the cartels was aggressive and cost 42,000 lives by the end of his presidency, but he was one of the more effective presidents when it came to fighting off the cartels. As you can tell, the drug cartels have swallowed up the power across the country of Mexico. To close, to quote Murphy and Rossi's 2019 article, drug cartels have become one of the most pervasive and successful forms of organized crime in the world. The Mexican government is not confronting dangerous criminality, it is fighting for survival against narco-terrorism. The Mexican drug cartels have negatively impacted the communities, corrupted the government, and crippled the country of Mexico. To stop the drug cartels for once and for all, they must not fall for their bribes, but instead create a long-term solution to defeat the country's drug cartels and restore the true beauty of Mexico. Thank you.
What was your time?